and welcome to another episode of the Grow Your Occupancy podcast. This is Julie Podewitz, CEO and founder, and today you're in for a great time. As this is being recorded, Super Bowl Sunday is coming up, so I thought it'd be really fun to talk with a sports expert, one of my favorite sports experts, Paul Helgren, who is the Associate Athletic Director of Communications at University of Toledo. Hi, Paul.
Hi, Julie. Thanks for having me on.
We also reinforce, the importance of practice in sports, music. I think we can all agree or see the necessity of practice. You can't learn the piano by watching a video. Michael Phelps, is practicing swimming more than anybody else, even though there's the natural gifts and talents he was born with. In sports, your drills, your plays, your physical therapy, all of that. What do you think, or maybe do in sales, or in what we do, there's a lot of pushback. Like, I already know how to do it, right? And so do your players already know how to play football. They already know how to play tennis. Why do they need to practice? And why do they need to do drills?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, the short answer is to get better. The analogy I would use is me in golf, right? I like to golf. I'm not very good at it, but I like to golf. When I have time, do I go get lessons to get better? No, I go play because I like to play. So athletes like to play. Maybe salespeople like to go out and do sales or whatever they do. But the reality is, a weekend golfer not wanting to get better is okay. An athlete or a salesperson not wanting to get better is not okay. And I don't know of any athlete who has, reached the pinnacle or at least reached a high level of success who wasn't in some ways obsessed with practice. And you'll hear about basketball players who, they can't go to sleep unless they've shot 300 shots. For our football team, they have very organized practices. And then you'll hear stories of guys will, in their off time, go over to the football facility and throw the ball and practice on their own. Those are individuals who are dedicated and determined to get better. And if you have that in your sales force, then I think you're fortunate.
And you've been around a lot of coaches and all different sports, and certainly you've been a coach, your son's teams, you've been around coaches as a parent. What are characteristics of a great coach?
Well, the characteristics of a great coach at the youth level is dealing with parents who are unhappy that their kid's not playing more or whatever it is. And I did okay on that level occasionally. One or two times I ran into some issues there, but no, coaching is a great profession. It's a form of teaching, and it's a form of teaching for most coaches that are in it, something they love. So what more could you ask for, right? As a way to make a living. So the formula for a great coach is might be different for different coaches, but I think there would be some some commonalities. First of all, you've got to know your craft. You really got to know your stuff inside and out. If you don't know, if you know less than the people you're teaching, that's going to become apparent pretty quickly. But beyond that, we'll take that as a given for most coaches, is how you treat people, how you differentiate between individuals, right? Not everybody's the same. Some athletes need to be pushed more, some need to be hugged more. I think it's interesting when you have coaches who switch from coaching males to females. They'll always talk about, or the other way around, I suppose, they'll always talk about the differences, and you better figure out those differences pretty quickly or you're not going to succeed. And I think the same is true whether you have a small team like a tennis team or golf team, or they have a big team like football. You've got to get to know the individuals and know what turns their key, right? And know when to push and know when to pull back. And then to just treat people well, whether they're your assistant coaches or your players. If you don't treat people well, it's not going to work in the long run. People won't stand by you. They won't be loyal. In our business, it's very easy now to transfer. We have something called a transfer portal. If individuals aren't happy, it's just as easy as, pushing a keystroke on a computer, and you're in the transfer portal, and you can go somewhere else. We've been very fortunate, knock on wood. We've benefited more from that. We've had more quality and talented individuals coming into our program than going out by far. And I think that's a reflection of the quality of the coaches that we have at our department.
People, want to feel seen and heard, right, and acknowledged. And so to get to know people individually, I would agree. How does a coach? I've never been in a locker room. I'm just curious about the coaching in the locker room, like at halftime, and the team is losing. So what's happening there? I know it depends on the personality. I mean, I've seen Coach Taylor, at halftime during Friday night, but I've heard that you can't. Yeah, that, and I believe too. We all have a inner motivation, and you can help someone tap into it, but you can't truly motivate. I don't know how you feel about that, but what's going on for the losing team? What's the coach telling them? Or saying?
Depends on the coach, depends on the team, depends on the sport too. I go back to football. It's a shorter season. You only have 12 games. There's a lot more riding on any one game. I think football coaches are more likely to push a little bit more because of that intensity. Also, it's a violent game. It's an emotional game. You have to understand that when you're dealing with these young men. A lot of times that's what's required, whether it's pregame, halftime, in-game, whatever. The intensity is such that you're going to probably need to bring that intensity into that communication. Other sports might be a little bit different, depending on the coach. I've heard that's one of the questions the media almost always asks in a comeback game, or I'm saying, hey, what'd you tell the team at halftime? What's the first thing when you in the second half of a football game, the coach comes out, the microphone goes in front of the coach's face. What's the first question? What'd you tell the team, coach? And they generally sidestep. They don't really want to tell you what they said, because it's either secret sauce or it's profane. But well, we got to work harder, or whatever they say. But we're all curious to know, what is it? And I think some coaches feel like it is secret sauce, that they don't really want to share what it is they communicate, because they don't want others stealing that secret. But I think a lot of coaches would agree, if your wins and losses depend on that couple minutes in the locker room at halftime, you're probably in trouble. Coaching is a 365-day a year endeavor.
Yeah.
And you've got to be excellent in all those times, and not just at halftime. If you're relying on your halftime speech to motivate your team, and not those other 364 days, then you're probably not doing it right.
Kind of like the crash diet, if you're expecting to lose weight.
Yeah, again, if we want to make the business analogy, maybe it's the car salesman who's not working hard, and then it's the 29th of the month, and he's got to make his quota, and he's going crazy and trying to make it.
Right.
It's not going to work.
And the balance between and what I see, Paul, is a lot of people struggling with maybe sales managers, or regionals or EDs, on that balance between that positivity, and encouragement, and being harder on someone, hold them accountable, right? So with sports analogy, you'd be like, come on, you need to, to be either, like you said, you got to know your team, to either be like really hard on them, or to be like, hey, it's okay, you guys are great, or your women are awesome. I mean, it's is it just like a per coach thing, or you just know your audience, the balance of those two things?
Yeah, I mean, not ever having coached at that level, it's hard for me to say. My sense is that you have to pick your moments, right? There's a time and a place for everything. And we have some coaches, for example, our women's basketball coach, Tricia Cullop, highly successful coach. When the game's over, she doesn't talk to the team. She doesn't even go to the locker room. They huddle in the court. She says one or two words, good game, whatever, practicing tomorrow, and off they go. And that's unusual. But she said her philosophy is her team's attention span is never worse than after a game, win or lose. And why should she waste her time when, she can really communicate better the next morning in practice or whenever the next time she sees them. Other coaches have lots to say after a game. So you kind of have to pick your moments as well, when to understand there's just nothing you can say. You just, give them a hug and say, good game. We'll get them tomorrow or whatever. I think there's a big difference between, say, post-game communications and in-game communications or pre-game. And maybe there's a sales analogy or business analogy there as well, too. But
Yeah. I think that so losing a sale, let's say, or having losing in sales and losing a game, or knowing when, I think that's really important too. Know your audience. So in this case, Tricia knows, no, that's not the best time. That it's going to fall on deaf ears or ears that can't absorb anything, or our minds that can't. One thing that I don't do as a coach is say, how would you do that differently? Like, if for the loss, I understand that it's like, learn from your past, or why did that play go that way, or what might you do differently or better next time. But I don't like people to ruminate on the negative, or like, so what would you do better, or what would you do differently? I don't know if as in sports, I mean, you can rewind and watch the game and learn and grow from there, but not beat yourself up about the loss. That's
Well, there's a lot of emphasis on evaluation, not only in games but in practices. Practices are recorded and reviewed in almost in real time in the case of football. And that's a big part of learning and correcting and identifying what needs to be done. I would say that often that's in the in the case of a game, it's the next day you're evaluating. You're probably not evaluating that night. The coaches might be, they might be, locked up in a dark film room and already evaluating, but that communication with the student athlete generally would be a day removed.
And it's always like,
very important.
how can you tweak, your performance, and or what do you need to practice? And a great coach maybe, come in and say, you're twisting your arm, the wrong way, or my great sports coaching, but in sales, that how we don't record everything. Some calls are recorded, but which is important, and it's vulnerable to watch yourself or dance, that background in dance, of course, and a big interest there. It's the same kind of thing, or choreography. You're watching the performance and looking for mistakes, basically, looking for areas that, okay, let's stop the music, let's do it again. But in that case, the audience, your students, are not all of them. They don't want to stop and do it again all the time. They don't want to make mistakes, but they're determined to make the performance the best. And that's, I guess, really what it takes. It takes determination. If you don't want to get better, right? Like you said, don't practice, or don't watch yourself, or don't listen to your coach, and then you don't have a job, or you don't have a career, right? Or you're off the team, in other words. So I'm going to do a couple of fun speed rounds here, Paul. I really appreciate you jumping on, and I would love to talk to you more. But let's talk about sports moments, because you were talking about the moment a little bit ago. What comes to mind when I say, like, your top 3, this is hard, probably, sports moments, or a few top moments?
Well, personally, I had an extremely undistinguished athletic career in junior high and high school and in youth, but I loved to play. And I played 1 year of football, and I was a backup, but I got in a game and I intercepted a pass and almost scored a touchdown. Almost was a pick six. I got pushed out around inside the 10-yard line. That was my big highlight. So you can tell from that example, not a very distinguished career, but I have had some great highlights, as a fan. I grew up as a Detroit sports fan. So when the Tigers won the World Series in 1984, that was a big deal.
I know, I remember that too. And you were a sports writer all through college. You had your own column called Raising Hell. shout out, University of Michigan, go blue. And yeah, I remember that article you wrote.
Yeah, I got to cover one of the games at Tiger Stadium for the Michigan Daily. The Tigers blew out San Diego. I don't remember the score, but I got to cover that one game, and then I got to write a number of columns about the Tigers that summer, and then after they won the World Series. So that was exciting, and I got to celebrate in the streets of Ann Arbor that great win. But the Pistons also have won 3 championships in my lifetime, and those were exciting. We mentioned the Lions. We'll skip on that. I'm not a huge hockey fan, but I'm happy when the Red Wings win the Stanley Cup, and they've done that a number of times. But into my career, I've had so many things going back to my early days. I was at Eastern Michigan for 5 years, Wisconsin, Milwaukee for 8 years. Had lots of great memories there. Some of the memories at the University of Toledo that stand out were some of those big football wins. We beat the University of Michigan in 2008. We beat Penn State in 2000. We came back from a 23-0 deficit in the 2001 MAC championships to beat Marshall. That was incredible.
Wow.
Just on and on. So many great wins. Recently, we won the MAC championship here at Ford Field in Detroit, and we beat Ohio, and then went on to win a bowl game. Basketball, both men's and women's, have had numerous great wins. Been to the NCAA tournament for the women on the women's side. Seen a lot of great wins on the men's side. Both teams are doing great right now. Our men are tied for first. Our women are just a game out of first. So many good memories there. And then lastly, I will say some of my very best sports memories are watching my sons play or coaching them. And almost too many to mention, but I'll mention 2 that come to mind. One was when my oldest son Michael was a senior in high school, youngest son Andrew was a freshman. Andrew ended up playing on the varsity baseball team, which was not easy to do, and they went all the way to the state regional finals, and they won the district finals with a 3-run rally in the bottom of the 7th inning, which was amazing and so much fun. And and they both played lots of sports. Younger son Andrew was a running back, and when he would go on long runs and score touchdowns, my heart would practically go into my mouth. I was also the PA announcer at the football games
I
when they
was
were
there.
junior high.
I was there for the Green Bears, right?
That's right. And then in high school, I was up in the press box. I wasn't PA, but I was up there, and it was just great. Those were the best. Coaching them in baseball, basketball, other sports, and then watching them play through high school was just phenomenal. I can't think of anything I would rather do.
Yeah, I'm lucky too. I saw them both play quite a bit. And you were guest announcer at a game that and Michael was playing. Andrew, I think, was in 8th grade. And you were guest announcer at the game that I was in. You were doing something. You were in the press box announcing something. Do you remember that?
That must have been junior high, because I don't think I've ever done high school game, but I certainly was up in the press box.
Well, maybe that's it.
Yeah.
In my mind, you're like the coach of all of it. You're in charge. You're the boss.
I was what they call a spotter. That's the person that's watching the game and then telling the announcer what to say.
Maybe that's it. What about come from behind? You talked about Toledo 23 deficit. That's crazy in a great way. What any other come from behind examples? We have to come from behind in senior living sales all the time, because in our business, the people we serve are older adults. Our dad, of course, lives in assisted living. He has done for 6 years now. So, we have to come from behind. If we have 10 outs, 10 move outs, or, 10 people pass, we got to fill, those apartments. And so it feels like a constant, climbing up a hill. What about sports moments come from behind?
Well, certainly the one that I mentioned against Marshall, that was back in 2001, so it was a long time ago. But that era of that football team under Coach Tom Amstutz, it seemed like we were always falling behind. We were always. Bowling Green one year they had us at halftime, I think 27-7, and we came back and won. And I'll always remember Coach Amstutz said to the in the locker room to one of our offensive coordinators, "You didn't think we were going to win that game, did you?" No. But you have to believe, you have to, there's no penalty for not giving up. You know what I'm saying? If there's if you're down 4 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, you could say it's impossible, and you'd probably be right. But what's the advantage of that, right? Whereas if you just say, hey, you know what, we can still win this thing, and then even if you don't, who cares? You believed you could. And the sports world is full of crazy, crazy comebacks. What was it? The Minnesota Vikings this year, they were down 31 or something like that. Just incredible, crazy. They came back and won it. There's just no penalty for believing, right?
I love that. There's no penalty for not giving up. I wrote that
Yeah,
down. It's something
no.
that we're going to put that
And
on our.
sometimes people will laugh. There's 2 minutes to go in a basketball game and you're down 20 and some guy's diving for a basketball or committing a
Yeah,
hard foul. And why not? Why not?
I love it. I love it. And lastly, best sports movie?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Fortunately, you gave me a heads up on this one. I always kind of choke on this because I don't know if there's ever been the great sports movie, at least for me. There's been some good ones, but there's been way more bad ones, I think, than good ones. Boxing and track and field tend to be good
Yeah.
sports for movies because they're easy to film and so forth. So I think about the first sports movies that I saw as a kid that I thought were great. Pride of the Yankees comes to mind. Um, Brian's Song. Do you remember Brian's
Oh my
Song?
gosh, I
With James
do.
Caan and Billy D. Williams.
Yes,
Well, I've
yes.
watched some of these, what I thought were great movies as a kid later on and realized, they really weren't that good. So there's some other movies I think I'm going to have to rewatch to evaluate. One is one of your all-time favorite movies, Rocky, which was a great movie, I think. Field
It's a
of
great
Dreams
movie.
was a huge movie when it came out for me, and I've actually seen that a couple times, and that one's held up.
Field of
Um,
Dreams.
One you might not have heard of, a baseball movie called 8 Men Out about
Oh
the
yes. No, I
Black
do.
Sox scandal,
Yes.
1919. Great movie. Let's see. More recently, I thought Moneyball was a great movie, the baseball
Yes.
movie with
Yep.
Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt and
You
Jonah
mentioned
Hill.
Friday Night Lights,
Mm,
great movie and a great TV show, and quite different. I think was it Billy Bob Thornton played the coach
he
in the movie?
did.
I thought did a great job of not not being cliche and overdoing it and doing the rah rah speeches and all that. Um, let's see what else. I said track and field with Chariots of Fire would definitely come to mind. Great soundtrack, great movie from the 70s, 80s,
80, yeah,
early 80s.
79 maybe.
I'm gonna have to watch that one again to see how that holds up. I don't
What is it?
know.
Just like I never saw it. It was like slow motion
There was some slow
running.
mo.
Not
Yeah,
sure.
I don't know.
But it won Best Picture.
It did,
That's
as
another.
did, and Rocky did too, right?
And Rocky, well deserved. Hey, next podcast, for those of you who don't know, my brother is a guru not only in sports but movies, films. He's a great writer. Didn't you used to do movie reviews? And I love them. You haven't done as many of those, but
Yeah, I just kind of got onto other things, and of course, we all stopped going to the movies. Maybe that had something to do with
yeah,
it. But
true enough.
yeah, I should get back into that.
Please do. Okay,
Okay.
Super Bowl Sunday. Not to put you under pressure, people are going to watch this after the Super Bowl. First of all, who you rooting for?
Well, as always, I'm rooting for the Lions, but they're not in it. Maybe never will be in it. I've come to
Don't
accept
give
that.
up. There's no penalty for not giving up.
That's true. Well, that's why I watch every week. I still watch.
Okay.
So I haven't given up. I'm going to go with Philadelphia. We have a former Rocket on the Eagles, Brett Kern, a longtime punter, great punter.
Great.
Um, I want to say Brett is in year 14 in the NFL. Much of his career is with Tennessee. Thought his career was over and is now with the Eagles this year and is in the Super Bowl. So great for Brett. And just in general, I feel like Philadelphia is kind of like one of those blue collar, underrated towns that love sports. I know they love their sports there. So Kansas City has won it recently, and they've been in the Super Bowl a lot recently. So let's go with Philly.
Okay. All right. I'll go with Philly, but I'll also go with Chiefs just to mix it up. We have we're here outside of Nashville, and Titans. You mentioned Tennessee, but I know a lot of Chiefs fans. I don't know if that's because of proximity, and of course Patrick Mahomes,
Mhm,
big
mhm.
star there.
Great
Um,
player.
yeah, Great. Yeah. Yeah. Seems like a great person, which is always, as you know, how I
Well,
rate my.
based on his insurance commercials, he seems like a nice guy. And that's
And
how we base it.
I do. I
That's true.
base it on like, yeah, are they nice? Are they nice off the field? Off the field too.
Right. That's why you think of the Manning brothers. Oh, they're nice guys. I really like their
Exactly.
commercials, right?
My favorite, yes, my favorite football players. Well, Paul, thanks for talking with me on the Grow Your Occupancy podcast. If you want to learn more about us and what we do, you can find us on growyouroccupancy.com. And please like and share podcast. It helps others find us. And if you want to learn more about sports or the University of Toledo, Paul, how do they get in touch with you?
Oh, the best way to learn about the Rockets is to go to our website, utrockets.com, or follow us on social media. We're on all of them. Name it. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. You will find us on social media.
You got it. Go Rockets.
Go
Thanks,
Rockets.
Paul.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.